set. Everybody set? I'm going to call the order of the Norwich Board of Education meeting, February the 8th, 2022. I apologize for the delay. It's 5:32 p.m. Heidi, Heather, boy, it's going to be a bad night. Would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I apologize, Heather.
That's okay. That's usually what everyone calls me. A lot of people call me Heidi, and I just
We're going to deviate from the agenda to listen to our next section from, we have a presentation by Learn. And Al, you are the liaison. Would you please do the honors in presenting the people?
When I became the Norwich Board of Education representative to Learn, it was after being on the board for a few terms, and we were regularly getting the Learn report, and it was always, very interesting what was coming back, and I said, oh, that's very nice. And so one day I was asked to go to a Learn meeting. And so I went, and as many things in public service do, you went once, you're the next guy that gets to take over that job. So the Learn for us is a RESC. And in our world of acronyms, that was the first thing that was very interesting. It was a regional educational services center. So that meant there was more than one, which I didn't know at the time I took over this job. So we were just a small part in this big system. I'm thinking Learn ran the whole state. I was wrong. Having now been on the Learn board, I think coming up probably 7, 8 years now, we almost do. Okay, let me just put it to you. Learn is getting a lot of things done in this system that we call education. And they are a lot of help to individual towns. And right now, though she will gladly tell you that it is us as boards of education and the representatives we send, because it is a very caring board that I sit on there when it comes to the education of our children. Ms. Erickson she's my second one, and you try not to play favorite with your children, but it has been an honor to work with her these last few years. And so with so many new board members, so you don't start so far behind the 8 ball as I did, I thought it would be just a great opportunity for her to come by, say hi to everybody, and you to find out what a regional educational service center does, and particularly what ours does for us here in Norwich. So please, without further ado, welcome Ms. Kate Erickson.
Good evening, everyone. As Mr. Daniels said so eloquently, I am Kate Erickson and the Executive Director of Learn, but more importantly, a proud product of Norwich Public Schools. So it's an honor to be here today. And thank you, Dr. Stringfellow, for giving me this time. Today, in my time with you, I'm hoping to cover 3 areas. And I hope as a result of this presentation, you will have a better understanding of Learn, and your Regional Educational Service Center, and I'll be happy to answer any questions at the end if you have any. 55 years ago, there was a state statute that created RESCs. As Mr. Daniels mentioned, there's 6 RESCs in the state of Connecticut. We're part of a national network called Educational Service Agencies that exist across the country. We were created, our region for Learn goes from Guilford all the way to North Stonington. We have 25 towns, 24 districts, and 21 superintendents that Learn serves. In the legislation that was created 55 years ago, our whole purpose was to bring and collaborate with boards of education. In the idea that together our boards of education would have a purpose for cooperative action to furnish programs and services for the region. Learn is operated by a board. That board is made up of a board member per district. So we have 24 board members that are part of our board, and they operate and manage the Regional Educational Service Center. We are different from an LEA. We don't operate under the same exact rules. We exist as a voluntary agency. Students that we receive come under contract. So we run magnet schools in southeastern Connecticut, but that is under approval from the state of Connecticut. We also accept students for special education programming, and that is a one-to-one contract that we would have with the district. We have no tax authority, and our governance, again, is from the boards. Whereas an LEA has tax authorities, you're mandated to provide public education for your students, and your governance is an elected board of education. We do have the authority to earn and spend revenue, but one of the benefits of the RESC is that we do not have to, we can carry over money year to year unless it's a federal grant or a special grant. One of the hard things about being in a district is that if you don't spend all your money that year, it has to be returned to the town. And that's always a challenge, one that our RESC or any RESC does not have. Learn is a mission-oriented agency. So we have a mission vision framework that provides our board with clear goals, vision, and a theory of action that if we innovate, collaborate, and serve with and for our region, then we're going to be able to get closer to our vision. Our vision is to ensure high-quality education and opportunities for all students across southeastern Connecticut. And we do that through systems of education, through systems of support, and through systems of service. We also we measure our work through 3 goals. The first goal really entails the work that we do in our magnet schools. The second goal has to do with the work that we do for services and programs, and a lot of times those are customized services and programs. And the final goal has to do with operational excellence and our ability to support large and small districts in areas of organization and cost-effective operations. So in our magnet schools, we run 4 of them. They vary in size and function. So we have a pre-K and K school in Waterford called the Friendship School that has 503 students that are 3, 4, and 5 years old. It's quite an experience if you ever want to come by. And that is a wonderful early education start. It started as a collaborative between New London and Waterford, and now is a full magnet where students from any town can attend. We also run a K-6 program, a K-5 program, in New London called the Regional Multicultural Magnet School. That school is located right in the old Buckley High School in New London, and that is now an international baccalaureate school that would happen through something that we partner in Norwich with. It was what's called a Magnet Assistance Program grant, where we received about $5 million over the past 5 years to do that improvement work. We also have Marine Science Magnet High School. That high school is marine science themed. It's located right near Avery Point in Groton. It has 271 high school students, 9 through 12, And it is quite a unique place. If you ever want to purchase coral, our students are growing coral, which I didn't know you did, and they're doing quite an astonishing job with coral sales in the last year. So it's very fun school. We also, I don't know what the word is, harvest barramundi fish and what's the other one? Trout. So these are things that we can't put out into the rivers, but we sell to restaurants. So it's a very unique school. It's a niche school that we're really fortunate to have. And the final tiny school is at Three Rivers Middle College. It's located inside Three Rivers Community College. It has 67 11th and 12th graders. This high school is really a treat. Last year we graduated 4 students with a real estate license. We have students who regularly graduate with an associate's degree before they actually get their high school diplomas. It is just a really special school that kids are allowed to really engage in all of the course opportunities that Three Rivers has, and it's a wonderful partnership with Three Rivers. Goal number 2 we talked about has to do with our programs and services. So Learn, and I know I apologize for the small print there, but the Learn program, one of the programs that we've been developing over the last 3 years is the Ocean Avenue Learning Academy. The Learning Academy is a regional service center or service program for students with the most complex disabilities. We have about 70 students at that program. Currently, I think 18 of the students come from Norwich, and we also have a Boston Post Road, which is a transition academy. What makes Ocean Avenue so special is it allows us to house all of our highly skilled staff in one location. So we have multiple students, teachers of special education, we have social workers, school psychs, psychiatrists on board, and it allows us to support the whole child and create really individualized program for each child that comes through. We also provide a diagnostic wellness center. Sometimes students are dysregulated. We don't know exactly what's going on with them. They can come to Learn for 45 days. We can do testing. We can get evaluations done. And a lot of times after that 45 days, we can send students right back with a clean, clear program of what they need and what supports they can have. That has been extremely helpful for the region. And that wasn't Learn's idea. As much as I like to say we have great ideas, this was the idea of superintendents in the region. This is what they needed, this is what they asked for, and this is what we created. We are currently at Ocean Avenue in the midst of project number 2. We're putting $10 million into the second floor, and this program serves kids from pre-K up to 22 years old. It is constantly growing and thriving, and we're innovating at that program. So we're excited about the work that's happening there. But the Student Support Service Department not only runs that program. We do a ton of work for this Connecticut State Department, the Bureau of Education. We are actually helping them with a whole new IEP rollout and programming support with brand new technology to put IEPs online with one program across the entire state. We have a ton of work happening out of that program, as well as we do speech and language services, we do psych evals across the districts. We come right to our district's doors. We've done a lot of work on early childhood and autism. We've actually just written a guide book for the State Department, and the work is expanding on a daily basis. I think we're going to have to hire about 20 more employees to be able to help us with the State Department work alone. And that's one of the beauties of the RESC, is that we allow the State Department to systemize their work by our teams doing the work for them. We also have an Office of Teaching and Learning, and our focus at Learn has really been an equity focus, because this idea of all students ensuring access to a high quality education means all. It has nothing to do, we really don't want any barriers to get in the way of students having high quality opportunities, and we were here to help figure that challenge out. We do work with curriculum reviews. We actually have been doing town trainings locally. We've been doing Board of Ed trainings. We have designed superintendent networks around equity. We also manage regional title grants, so we run consortiums for Title III and Perkins. And we also can you can give us a call and we can see if we can design a program for you in terms of help with mathematics, digital learning. We have a team members who have a various amount of skills that we can put some customized programs together for you. We also have a Office of Young Children and Family, and they do a lot of work with the State Department and the Office of Early Childhood around supporting high-quality pre-K around the state for private as well as public programming. So we really support the NIAC standard of accreditation, and we help private and public pre-K create their programs and reach those high standards. We've done some state work with the governor called Gear Up for Learning, which gives iPads to parents and then trains the parents on how to use them with their pre-K students. So there's not really a limit to the things that we do. Our team also supports a handful of towns with school readiness programs as a liaison. And last but not least, our goal 3 has to do with organizational programs and services. So this is something that continues to grow on a day-to-day basis. Last year, we had 2 superintendents come to us and talk about their challenges with technology. Our team came together and we actually created a new technology service. So now they hire our break fix for 1 day a week because that's all their budget can afford. Then they hire our tech director for another day a week so that they can get some big picture thinking in their district without hiring a full-time tech director. That's a brand new consortium that started with 2 districts, and now we have 4 districts that we're servicing. We also have created the ability to do some work around business operations and assistance. So we are helping some districts we're helping them with their finances and doing their management of their payrolls. And so we're constantly exploring those areas where small districts can't afford a large staff, but they still have the same work that larger districts have. And finally, one of the newest consortiums that we created at no cost, or no fee to us, is our oil and fuel purchasing consortium, and we're doing that with all 6 of the RESCs. And that is basically what we're doing is we're able to work with a provider that will give you $1 off of every gallon. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but when you buy 150,000 gallons a year, that's a lot of money, adds up. So we're really proud of that consortium that we got off the ground just in the last 6 weeks. So we're working with towns, municipalities, as well as districts on that work. And last but not least, we're really proud of the teacher residency program and our partnership with Norwich on recruiting and retaining high-quality teachers of color for our students and for our communities. And this program is started at CREC 2 years ago. In the past 2 years, they had about 11 candidates or residents come through each year. And this year, because we expanded to 4 RESCs beyond the borders of CREC, we were able to bring in 46 teachers residents to come into different districts and support their achievement to become a certified teacher. So we're really proud of that program, and we're happy to support it and bring it to this region. These are just a laundry list of just small work that we do when we're called upon. So one of the things I want you to walk away with is that just because I didn't talk about it today doesn't mean we don't do it. A lot of times we just want to be a thought partner. We have people who've been doing this work for decades in different capacities. Some of them come from urban districts, some of them come from little tiny rural districts, some of them suburban. So we have all different experiences in our leadership team, in our staffing, and we're not prevented from hiring new staff to help with new types of challenges. So that's something we're excited about, and we always want to invite boards to come to us to talk about the challenges. We might not always be the solution, but sometimes we just want to be at the table to talk about what's going on, and what we are able to connect is the themes across the region that we see, and then we can think strategically about what we can build to help multiple districts at a time. That's all I have for you today, and I hope I didn't take too much time. I really appreciated this opportunity. At any time, you're more than welcome to reach out to myself or anyone on our teams. We measure our success by the service that we give. So if we can provide a service to Norwich Public Schools or any in our region, we would be grateful to partner with you. But thank you, Mr. Daniels, for this opportunity. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions at all?
I just wanted to add, Kate, what a blessing you are to our superintendent's group. And through the whole pandemic, Kate would organize weekly meetings wrangling more than 25 superintendents and our issues and our collective processes. And you're so wonderful, and we really appreciate your support. Thank you so much for coming this evening.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Before you go, again, one of the other things that we've done with Learn is our two magnet middle schools, our collaborations with Learn. They were standard high schools or standard middle schools a few years ago, and through some programs that they helped us put together the packages for, that's how we became those two magnet schools that we have now, and the programs that escalated them to the next level. So again, thank you, Learn, for all the things you do to help Norwich be that much better a school district. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Al, thank you very much for bringing us to a presentation. I think it was very informative, and I wish nothing but good luck for and good and prosperous for them going forward.
The vice chair, you got a little time now, so.
All right. The next item on the agenda is our segment of public comment. Excuse me. The board welcomes public comment as it represents an opportunity for the members of the public to express their views to the board on matters within the board's authority. So on behalf of the board, I wish to remind those offering comments that, consistent with our bylaws, we ask that speakers limit their comments to 3 minutes, and there is a maximum of 30 minutes for each subject matter. All speakers must maintain appropriate standards of decorum. No boisterous or inappropriate conduct is permitted. We expect comments to be respectful and civil in tone, and we do not permit name-calling, raised voices, or vulgarity. All comments must be directed to the board and not to any individual board member or individual member of the administration. As noted, public comment is your opportunity to convey your views to the board. It is not, I repeat, not a question and answer session. The board and the administration will not be responding to questions or engaging in dialogue with the public during this comment period. The board and the administration will determine whether, when, and how to address questions that arise during the public comment period. And finally, when you come to the microphone, please state your name and address for the record. I now open up public comment.
We don't have anybody signed up at this time.
My name's Shanice Lamboy. I live at Sylvester Street. I've had an issue with Norwich Public Schools for a while now since my daughter was in Veterans. I don't think y'all as a group work together to make certain, like the last minute school, the half day. I got a call at 5:30 in the morning. Do y'all understand what that does to single parents? Do y'all just meet up at like 4 o'clock in the morning and just decide, hey, we're gonna cancel school? My daughter was bullied. I brought it to central office attention. Nothing was done. Nothing. If my daughter bullies somebody in school, y'all gonna want me to handle it? What are y'all doing for our children? My daughter wasn't even apologized to when she was bullied in school. I had to demand she be apologized to. I brought it to a few of y'all's attention. Apparently, when there's a bully issue, somebody's supposed to reach out to me. Nobody did. A little boy exposed himself on the bus that my daughter rides. And if she did not tell me about it, nobody would have told me. My daughter was bullied by a third grader. She's in first grade. She didn't say anything to me because she was scared. Do y'all want to see the picture I have on my phone of the bruise this little girl left her? I emailed it to some of you. That little girl didn't even apologize to my kid. But if my kid goes to school and bullies somebody and leaves them bruises, am I going to get the same in return? My kid doesn't have to apologize? That's all. I honestly think that y'all have to do a better job because what you guys are doing now, I don't think at all it's a good job. At all. Canceling school at 10:30 at night because of staff shortages. If y'all was not ready to open because of COVID, y'all should have stayed in remote learning. Y'all are inconveniencing single parents who have to work 40+ hours to keep a roof over their children's head. And y'all are thinking of just yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else for public comment?
Rodney Boyd, 62 Roosevelt Avenue. I asked to have a policeman show up here tonight because I've heard a few problems in school. I've had 3 children go through the school system here, and they got the education that they worked for. I'm not saying they're all geniuses or whatever, but one thing I did find out is that one time or other, they have a little problem with no respect for teachers whatsoever. They don't have any manners. Many of the children don't. And I know something about this. I've been a landlord now in the city of Norwich for the past 58 years. And I know how some of these children are being raised. Mothers don't keep houses clean. They don't serve meals. Nobody sits down at the table. Nobody has manners. They don't know how to handle a knife and fork. They aren't being taught, basically, how to live a civilized life. And I was hoping that an officer would show up just because I want the teachers to know in this town that if a kid does not behave in school, he's not allowed to stay in the class. I'm serious. I was told when I was in the 6th grade, if I didn't like the school, I could always be put in a reform school, and they could teach me manners. And she was telling it as a general discussion over how we were to handle ourselves in the 6th grade. And I was a big kid in the 6th grade. I was over 6 feet tall when I got out of the 8th grade. We didn't have bullies. We didn't have anybody in the whole bunch of classes that did any kind of bullying whatsoever. For the general part, we had respect for people. My teacher found out one time that I was bored. So she sent me down to the library with a kid named Dana Gary, polio recipient. And he learned to read. I read all the time. I read a book a day on generals. I read a book a day. Everything from Zane Grey to Da Vinci.
Mr. Bowie,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but your time is up.
okay.
Thank you for
Right.
your comments. Is there anybody else for public comment? Is there anyone else for public comment? Is there anyone else for public comment? Mr. Bowie and Ms. Lamboy, thank you for approaching us with your concerns. I now declare public comment closed. Moving on, the next item on the agenda, the approval of the minutes of the Board of Education's meeting, January 11th on 2022. I'll entertain a motion from the board.
Mark Kulos, I make a motion that we accept the minutes as presented.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Greg Perry, I second.
And we have a second. Is there any comment, corrections, or omissions from the, regarding the meeting minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted, unanimous.
I wasn't here. I'm abstaining from this one since I wasn't at last month's.
Oh, I apologize too.
Yeah, that's all.
All right, moving on to reports. First report of the chairman. I do have one that I'm going to make, one under the board committees for the NFA liaison. Other than that, I have no other reports to make at this time. Report of the superintendent.
Thank you. So in my report, I have our COVID school student vaccination rates, the rates of COVID in the Norwich community. I report out on these monthly. Some information from our policy committee meetings. We meet every 2 weeks. We will be surveying parents, students, and staff on school uniforms. Look for that survey, please, the week of February 14th. Parents came to us and asked us to take a look at this policy again. We, at the policy committee, have reviewed the minority educator recruitment plan. It will be coming to you for review at the March board meeting. We reviewed supports for transgender and gender minority students, a policy that was requested by the Board of Education Race Equity Committee. It's ready for review at the March board meeting. We had a legal reviewed the Board of Education Race Equity Committee's recommendation to create a policy to protect cultural and religious beliefs of students and adults. The legal advisement that was shared with the policy committee was not to create a new policy because this is already covered in your non-discrimination policy. And there was some concerns that if you made a new policy and you didn't keep up on changing with the law each one, that you would make a misstep. And so that was brought to the policy committee and they agreed. But I wanted to make sure that the greater race equity committee heard that information. For the March board meeting, there will be a draft policy or administrative regulations on not permitting visitors to the school who are sex offenders. We are also working on reviewing several current policies with a race equity lens. We found an instrument that will help us to do that work. And we're revising the current attendance policy to include tardiness to school and parental early pickup. We, as you may know, Ms. Gloucester and I and several staff members have recently worked and are still working at Teachers Memorial Global Magnet Middle School to reset behavior expectations and student discipline structures. We started with a faculty meeting on February 3rd, so we could meet with the teachers and staff to talk about the major components of the reset. We brought in some staffing from Huntington and Stanton, Moriarty, and Ms. Gloucester and I, Amber and Chelsea, and 3 instructional coaches for this week, and many will stay on for a longer period of time. We reinstated the structures of after-school detention, in-school suspension, but also restorative and reteaching conferences at the school, and we assure the community that really, really difficult and challenging behavior will continue to be abided by the district policy, which could be out-of-school suspensions and expulsions. It's certainly not what we want, but we will maintain a safe atmosphere at all times. We've reestablished the school rules and student behavior expectations so that teachers can teach and students can learn without distraction, disruption, or interruption. We have really taken a hard line on no cell phones or accompanying paraphernalia such as AirPods and Apple Watches. They are a major distraction to instruction, and they often cause conflict among the adolescents because they're texting each other and Snapchatting each other, and disputes emerge during the school day. Students remain in their classroom during instruction unless they need to see the nurse. That seems like a reasonable expectation. It has been difficult to reset that one, I think more than the others. Students will be respectful and compliant with teachers and staff directions. And again, that safety of our students and our staff is our top priority. Reached out to parents and really got so much cooperation. I'm so very thankful. And let them know that a majority of our students are certainly doing the right thing, and we have already rewarded them. Tamara hosted like a donut party, and we didn't we went to Dixie Donuts, which was like way better, the students felt, than any other donut not to be named. And so students from 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade got to enjoy being caught doing the right thing. And they really appreciated that, and that is a part of our PBIS program that was started in the school, certainly before we came. And it was it's been wonderful being there. I think you're going to have to drag me back to central office because now I'm working with kids every day, and that doesn't happen at central office. But every day is getting a little better, and kids have been thanking us for being there with them. So we'd like to, of course, thank the staff and the students and the parents. It's been very enjoyable. The next item is the school resource officers. I have a presentation of the information that Chief Daly and I spoke of, and that comes at a later part of our agenda. And then I put in the events attended. I usually start off with the recognition awards, but it's number 6 in my packet this time. I was able to honor Katie Brinkerhoff at Teachers Memorial Global Studies Magnet Middle School. She is a TESOL teacher. She works so very hard to provide students with resources and strategies to succeed, finds time to build meaningful relationships with new students to provide them with the best educational experience possible. She provides continued support for her learners by assisting with breakfast and lunch and helping them with their lockers and reading their schedules, and is there for her students when they need someone that speaks their native language. Congratulations to Ms. Brinkerhoff for your hard work and continued dedication to all English language learners. And I was able to honor Nikayla Tillman, a Moriarty Magnet School 5th grade student, with the You Inspire Me Award. It was submitted by Ms. Rosado, the school social worker. And these are the words of Ms. Rosado. When weeks feel long and days feel hard, I have a student who comes to mind. She is caring, loving, and kind. This student is a leader amongst her friends and has achieved so much in a short amount of time. This individual is a student friend and, most importantly, an older sister. This student values connections and relationships and is undeniably the representation of what a Moriarty monarch should be. A person that, despite setbacks and hard days, pushes through and perseveres. This student continues to surprise me and makes me feel growth is possible. And so congratulations to Nikayla. And Louis Barragan, our Mahan second shift custodian, was nominated for the I Make a Difference Support Staff Award. He has proven time and time again to be an asset to the Norwich Public Schools. He has covered morning shifts throughout the pandemic on very short notice when needed, even after working all night long. He does impeccable work, and he is dedicated to facilitating the education of our students with his skill set. He is most deserving of this award. Congratulations, Louis. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Dr. Stringfellow, I notice in your reports, there's the weather cancellation or delay procedure policy. I know on Friday you called it for an early dismissal. Could you briefly go over how you came to that decision?
Certainly. We had been receiving reports and weather model forecasts for a couple of days about the severe weather on Friday. It was actually predicted early in the week to be a severe weather in the morning commute and in the afternoon commute, which would have caused a cancellation. Ms. Gloucester actually contacted the Department of Ed and said, so can we come in later and leave earlier? Will that count as a day? How many hours would that take? Knowing that we have had some cancellations this year that is pushing the student and staff calendar far into June. Thankfully, the morning commute resolved itself, and it was raining, as one of our parents shared earlier today. But we knew the night before solidly, and that it was going to be a bad commute on the way home. We just didn't know what time. So our process begins at 4 o'clock in the morning. I too am not a very good 4 o'clock a.m. morning person, but that's the time that it starts. And that's when we check in with the Department of Public Works and the Norwich Police, and our facilities director checks in with the custodians and starts driving around town. We have to make a decision by 5:15 whether the buses are going to roll or whether we're going to cancel or delay school. The reason that we need to do that is we have a tertiary transportation system in that we provide transportation for many area high schools. So what's listed in that attachment at the very end are all the schools that we provide transportation for, and you'll see that many of them are high schools for our students. In order for the high schools to go out and do their run, come back and pick up our middle school students, do their run, and do our elementary runs. And the same happens on the opposite side of the day. So in consultation with area superintendents at around 4 o'clock, we made a decision that the height of the storm was going to start at 2 p.m. and that we didn't want elementary students on buses at the most treacherous part of the storm, which would be 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock. And so in order to do that, we had to make an agreement with NFA that they also let their students early dismiss, and so that their students were dropped off in enough time to pick up our middle school students, and they're dropped off safely in enough time to get our youngest learners home safely. That is the call that we made. It was a good call, and students all arrived home safely, I'm glad to say. It is important to us. I'm a mom of 4 children myself, and I understand childcare really quick. And it's hard for people to find childcare. So when we know the decision, we tell parents and staff so that they can make the best arrangements possible. But I did reach out to the speaker that came forward and said that there are ways that you can reach out to your school administrative assistant, school secretary. If you're not wanting to receive a call that early in the morning, I understand that. You don't have to receive a call. You can receive a text, an email, any one of the 3, in whatever way is most convenient for your family. So I hope she was able to do that. I apologize for the 5:15 call, but that's the parents can control that piece. It's the output that we send on our end.
And that's a decision that you make in your committee?
I make alone.
Okay, so it's nothing the board,
Nothing the board does, unless you'd like to join me at 4 a.m., but I don't really recommend that. But yes, that's my decision. No.
So I just have a question.
Sure.
Concerning a lot of schools and parents that I have been speaking to who have been reaching out to me, and it's also a promise I made when I was here to continue talking about these COVID restrictions and the mandates that are going on in our schools right now. Now, we know that Hartford is releasing, their kids are going to be unmasked on February 14th. Their superintendent is doing the right thing. What can we do, and what are we going to do?
So that wouldn't be a decision that I make.
It's
We
actually,
follow.
it is.
Okay, we follow the governor's order, and the governor has decided that that he's going to ask the General Assembly to unmask students and staff if they want to at school and have it be voluntary. His executive order powers expire as of February 15th, so there's nothing prospective that would need to be done in order to accomplish what you're asking for.
Well, my question is, like, the other superintendents have reached out to their families. I can email them to you gladly. Hartford, Bethel, I think it is, Bridgeport. I mean, there are places that are going February 14th, mask optional. We need to work with our parents.
So unless you as a board put something else in place, then
I've
the
tried. No one
No.
responded to my emails.
Unless you, I think you're I'm sorry, I think you're misunderstanding me. It's the opposite of what you're saying. Unless you as the board put something else in place to put masks on, then masks will be optional by the governor, is my understanding, on February 14th. It's not the opposite.
Let me
Okay, well, no,
let me
that's-
interject, please, for a minute. This is the superintendent's report. Your concerns, very valid, should be brought up in a different segment of our meeting.
Stan, I was just commenting because in her superintendent's report, she did talk about COVID, so I figured it would be
She did.
a correct time to bring it up. I am sorry.
However, what you're bringing up is going to require a lot more in-depth discussion, something that she cannot answer.
Okay, but I would just like her to maybe acknowledge the fact that the governor's orders are lifted up and maybe
Again,
give the parents a
again.
heads up on when maybe. say-
Heather, I'm going to stop you right here, okay? Please, you're out of order now.
Excuse me, can it be discussed during new business?
That's correct. Anything else under the superintendent's reports? Hearing none, we'll go on to the report of the assistant superintendent.
Sorry, I had a quick question for you. In your report, you mentioned that I think one of the hardest thing for you is around like students remaining in their classroom during instruction unless they need to go see a nurse. Does that also include like if someone had to go use the restroom, can they get a hall pass to go, or is that not something that's visible? Because that's something that I'd heard from.
So what had happened previously, there'd been a number of things that had happened previously. At the beginning of the year, the restrooms were locked and unlocked for students to go to the restroom. 2 weeks ago, the restrooms were open more than they were closed. And now with the reset, what we're saying is during any passing time and at lunch, you can freely use the lockers and restrooms. Most students only go to their lockers twice a day. But if there is a need to go to the restroom beyond that, then they can come to the nurse's office. Right. And if there's any like medical need, if they would just, the parent could contact the school. But we believe we've been apprised of medical needs beyond the general rule.
Is there anything else? Thank you, Dr. Stringfellow. Report of the Assistant Superintendent.
Good evening. I just would like to just highlight a couple of things in my report. The first is our parent engagement and school events. So February 9th, 2022, they're planning the Blues and Beyond dinner and show. So that is a curriculum that that's in social studies, where we're incorporating the blues and relating that to American history. February 16th, Global Studies in Kelly Middle School has their school PTO. And then also there for Veterans Elementary School, they're having the month of, they're having Family Fitness Month. So as you know, with COVID, we definitely can probably use some of that. I know I can. And then also I included the volunteer report. This includes the volunteers that are interest per school. If you click on the link, those graphs will be legible. I just put the pictures there just so that you know that it would be contained in there. And then the volunteer totals and their interest and where they would like to volunteer. That's in that report as well. The second thing is the after-school clubs. We're very excited to have our after-school clubs going. We have the media arts. We have anime. We have a new program that's called Ed Rising, and that is a pipeline for students interested in becoming teachers later down the road, and that's in partnership with NFA. So if they start in the middle school with us, they can continue on at NFA should they go to NFA. We also have the LGBTQ+ club, and this is, as you know, they are a protected class, and this club has been a club and provided by Norwich Youth and Services. It's an affinity group to help support students who self-identify. And it's an after-school club. Students are able to determine whether that's something for them that they would want to go, or they want to learn more, or they just want to engage in social activism. We also have another great program called Teen Outreach Program that promotes positive development of adolescents through a curriculum guide, interview group, discussions, positive adult guidance and support. And that's at the middle schools as well. And of course, we have the others like crafts, dance, walking drama, Dungeon and Dragon, and as well as another program that's called STEP for short. It's actually student training empowerment program that provides students with assistance in their transition to college and academic preparation and retention. So some of that forward thinking. And so I just kind of wanted to highlight those two things in my report this evening. So that's from Norwich Family Youth Service. That's not our curriculum, just so you know.
To contact them directly?
You can contact them directly if you'd like. Yep. You're welcome.
Anything else? Any other questions or concerns by the board? Moving on to the report of the Director of Student Services.
Okay, good evening, everyone. You have my attached report, but before I kind of go over some of the details of that, I just wanted to publicly give thanks to our behavior support team that has been going to various schools, responding to our pleas to help certain schools that are in need due to staffing. They've been very flexible, very committed to their roles in our district, and I felt like I needed to publicly acknowledge all the work that they've been doing, as well as the entire student service staff that's been very responsive and flexible to help in whatever requests that we're making of them. You can see that our out-of-district report is climbing a little bit. We still have 109 students that are placed out into the private placements. We also have about 63 students that are at parent choice schools. And I also included this month, per your request, is our homeschool numbers. We get that out of registration. You can see that we currently have 113 students that are currently being homeschooled at the choice of their parents. We've had some that have actually transferred out of our district, some that have been homeschooled but then decide to return to our public schools, and then some that have actually graduated, moved on beyond 8th grade from Norwich Public Schools. So I'll be including that as well in our future monthly reports, so that you kind of have an idea as to how that's changing over time. In February, I have been including our district disability prevalence rates. You can see that we've had some decline in the overall numbers, but the predominant disabilities that we currently serve is naturally learning disability, but autism has now climbed into the next category. And as we've been talking for years, we've seen an increase in the prevalence of autism for quite some time, and it continues to increase. The other highlight is our state reporting for time with non-disabled peers, in our pre-K environments. And as you can see from the previous year, we had some work to do to reach our state target, but we had revamped the structure in which we are providing programming for our students with disabilities at the pre-K level, and our environment is entirely inclusive, so you can see that we've exceeded our state target by increasing that time, as well as decreasing any segregated program. And I included my professional responsibilities and some things that I've attended in January, and that's my report. Any questions?
Yes, Jamie, in your chart there for special education disability, is that the primary disability, or are there students that show multiple, are classed into multiple categories?
The multiple disabilities category is listed there individually, so if students are being served for multiple disabilities, it would show under that category.
All right.
It doesn't mean that there might not be other things that are underlying. It's just that for the purposes of the IEP, those are the classifications.
Okay, so it's a relatively small number.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else for comment on the Assistant Superintendent's report? Nothing from the board? I'm sorry. That's right. Heidi, Heather. Not doing good tonight, Bob. Hearing none, we'll move on to the report of the business administrator.
Good evening. In your board packet, you have individual reports for human resources, athletics, food service, business office, facilities, and technology. I won't go over every detail in all those reports because it's a lot, but I would like to focus and mention a few key elements that I think are important. On the technology side, we've received notification that we received the Emerging Connectivity Fund through E-rate. In January, we received 100% funding for 1,000 student Chromebooks. Our IT director, Matt Wazika, put in for the application. The value of the grant is $340,600, so that's a big plus for our district. That goes a long way towards replacing Chromebooks as they age out of the system. So it was 100% funding, so no cost to the district. We'll be getting 1,000 Chromebooks. We also submitted this month a grant application for the PEGpedia grant. It's $121,338. No guarantee we'll get that grant. Last time we got it, I believe, was 4 or 5 years ago. If that grant is awarded, it will replace the video upgrade for our distribution system at 100% funding. So we're keeping our fingers crossed on that one. And technology, not technology, facilities, not good news at Bishop's. The elevator is out of service. It's an old elevator. The cost to repair the control panel is $124,700. So we'll have to proceed with that repair. It'll come out of the general fund. Some positive news from athletics. In your board packet is a copy of an article from the Norwich Bulletin. Once again, athletics has made the news. It's a good, warm your heart story. Talks about the positive impact that athletics are having on our students. Shifting over to the business office, we had our first budget review meeting 2 weeks ago, and I thought that went well. We covered transportation, tuitions, and one other, I'm losing my mind now, what the other topic was that was covered. We have another meeting tomorrow night. Originally, it was just going to be on facilities and technology, but Alderman Gould inquired when we were going to cover grants. Originally, I was going to do that in our last session in March, but it's such an important aspect of funding for our district. I've moved that up to tomorrow night, and our agenda's been updated. So all that information has been sent out to you, so you'll have it when you go home. There's a lot of information there, and we'll cover that tomorrow night. We also, in January, received notification from the state on the amount of our excess cost grant reimbursement. It's just under $1.7 million. It's about $81,000 higher than I had forecast, so that'll help us at year end, so I'm pretty pleased with that. I'll feel better when the money's deposited into the city's treasury. So will Josh Pothier from a cash flow standpoint. We received 75% of the amount at the end of this month, so that'll be a little over 1.1 million, 1.2 million. The remaining 25% gets sent to the city in May. We're continuing to focus on the 22-23 budget, so we'll have that in a first draft final bottom line number for the March meeting. As far as 21-22 budget goes, things are continuing to trend favorably. Accounts that are showing a significant positive variance are tuition expenses, sped transportation, unemployment compensation, and overall total salaries. So I don't expect any real negative impacts towards the end of the year. As we get into early spring, I'll be able to put a dollar amount on where I think we might end up the year. We continue to work with Jamie and her office on special ed expenses. They can fluctuate greatly. We just had an increase in transportation on one particular placement, and that's going to be a negative expense towards the budget, but those things go in a positive way and a negative way on any given day. So I think those are the highlights or key points on all the reports, and if there are any questions, I'd be glad to take them.
Questions, anyone?
Estacio. Mine's just acting up. Sorry about that. A question about the athletics. You probably can't even answer it, Bob. I did attend a game this past week that I was thrilled to be there for the girls, and it was awesome. Both of my daughters played here. My husband even played here. So it was deja vu riding the benches. Of course, they're more comfortable now. But, and the cheerleaders were wonderful. I mean, you can see the effort that Coach Giusti and then Kiana is the girls' cheerleading coach. You can see the hard work that they're putting in, and the kids, of course. But it was wonderful to be there. My only question was about the restriction on how many people are allowed in. I don't know if that was a decision by Mr. Allen or what, because they were only allowing 2 people in per athlete, I believe. They let me in because I was Board of Ed. But, so I would like that looked at. 'Cause
I can offer a little comment. Dr. Stringfellow might be able to
Yeah, I know.
embellish
I meant to
on
ask
that.
Ashley when
I
she
know
was.
I constantly get emails back and forth with Lou, and he's working with the superintendent and
Mm-hmm.
the athletic directors for the surrounding towns, and I don't know it off the top of my head because it's been an ever-changing number.
Mm-hmm.
First, there were no spectators, then there were spectators for the home crowd, and it was limited to numbers, so he consults with Dr. Stringfellow, the other athletic directors, and Uncas Health. We'd like to be able to open it up to as many people as possible, and hopefully that's going to happen at some point in the future, but if Dr. Stringfellow can add to that, it would be great.
I think everything that Bob said is very important to acknowledge, but Lou has to work also with other athletic directors and other communities, and so they sit down together and they take a look at what the high school requirements are, the middle school requirements, the CIC guidance, the Department of Health guidance in our Uncas Health District and in other folks that we may play. And they agreed at the very beginning to limit spectators, which I think was a little okay for our athletes because they were brand new at trying this on. And then very quickly, they increased to 2, as you've experienced. So we expect them to continue to increase as a group, and I've just honored the fact that he's made an agreement with the other athletic directors that seems to be working. And if parents have, a desire to ask for more, then they should contact Mr. Allen directly. He can advocate through his group, and we'll certainly consider that.
That's what it was. I was wondering how that decision was come upon, so now I know, obviously. Well, I'm hoping with the changes in the mask mandates, et cetera, that we'll be able to have the kids come and watch their fellow classmates watch games, because that means a lot. Because now you can see they're grasping the rules now. I don't think they'll be as likely to be embarrassed.
Good.
They're
The
definitely
boys' Kelly
grasping the
game that I watched,
fundamentals.
we were winning for a significant period of time. And I get it that it's all about sportsmanship, but it was kind of cool our very first time to be winning. But yeah, they would love to have their classmates come and see them, and extended family members and friends, and so that's coming. I can check in with Lou to see if he has an estimate. But I know that they agree upon this as athletic directors,
group.
and they come up with something that works for everybody.
All righty, thank you.
If I could just dovetail on one thing you said, you did mention the cheerleaders, and I don't know if it was in Lou's report or in a conversation I had with him, and he did mention that we were the only school in the league at this level that has had cheerleaders at the game, so I thought that was pretty cool.
They mentioned in the newspaper article. Yeah, that's wonderful. And there's a lot of them. I mean, they were really good. I did question the color choice of uniforms, though. They were blue.
So when we brought back the teams, we checked in with the principals who checked in with their school improvement teams, and in some cases there had been a color change, mostly due to the magnet theme and selecting a mascot that had more to do with the magnet theme, but that happened prior to my tenure, and
Right.
the teachers and parents who serve on the school improvement team made the
Yeah.
final decision.
Because
And
it
I'm
was
sure
the same
kids
thing
did
with the
too.
uniforms of the team itself were black and gray. And I'm like, okay, where'd this come from? But he said they're getting new uniforms next year anyways, hopefully. So hopefully we'll go back to the O'Kelly green, because he tried to get the emblem of STEAM, but of course the cost of embroidery is an arm and a leg, so unless we have a wonderful constituent who can donate funds.
We are always accepting of wonderful constituents' funds.
Definitely. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, moving on. New business. First item on the agenda is the discussion and possible action regarding the McKinney-vento grant. Ms. Gloucester.
Yes, sir. So the McKinney grant, we need to submit that to CSDE, which in fact we did, but we have to also make sure that the board is aware and approves of the submission of the Mckinney-vento grant, which is to support students experiencing homelessness. and the funds are being allocated toward support with transportation, support with mental health and well-being, as well as support with temporary housing.
Thank you, Tamara. Is there any questions on this grant proposal of Tamara?
That was just gonna make the motion so that we can
Motion's
discuss.
in order.
So Carlene Chambliss would like to motion that we approve the submission of the application for the Mckinney-vento grant.
Aaron Daniels, second that motion.
We have a motion on the floor, and we have it seconded. Is there any further discussion or any discussion on this motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? So voted. Next item on new business, the informational report or presentation by Dr. Stringfellow on the school resource officers.
Thank you. I think we're switching over from the Learn presentation. If you could just give us one moment. Thank you. Oh, maybe not. Thank you. So on January 11th, the board unanimously voted to direct me to meet with the police chief to reinstate the SROs at the middle school as soon as possible. I met with Chief Daly along with Assistant Superintendent Gloucester and Lieutenant Detective Anthony Gomes on January 20th with a follow-up conversation on the 26th. The goals of the SRO program are based on the national goals. Providing safe learning environments for our schools, valuable resources to staff and parents, fostering positive relationships with youth, developing strategies to resolve problems, and protecting all students so they can reach their full potential. The national organization uses a triad concept. That's the same triad concept that was in place when there were SROs in Norwich at Kelly and Global years ago. They view three main roles of the SRO as educator, informal counselor and mentor, and law enforcement officer. The goals are to reduce juvenile arrests in the community, to decrease chronic absenteeism district-wide, to decrease the out-of-class referrals at the middle schools, and decrease the number of suspensions and expulsions district-wide. We agreed that the requirements is that a Norwich police officer wanting to become a school resource officer must obtain their SRO certification. It's a sanctioned course. And then once they're on the job as an SRO, required to become certified as an ALICE trainer because we at the Norwich Public Schools and in the police department use ALICE training for our staff and student crisis training. Once they become an SRO, we would ask that they be required to become a trainer in youth mental health first aid. That has been the subject of two PTO coffee hours with Norwich parents. That it's a program that we utilized in Rhode Island many years ago, and it's usually training first responders and teachers in making certain that they have the skills and the toolkit to really approach a student who may be struggling with a mental health issue, and to be able to give them support and aid. Also, restorative practices, which we have been utilizing in the Norwich Public Schools for several years. We both agreed that the preference will be given, if all qualifications are equal, to the SRO candidate who is BIPOC candidate, Black, Indigenous, person of color, in alignment with both the school department and the police department minority personnel recruitment plans or policies. We also agreed that all qualifications being equal, that we would like the SRO to be bilingual, because we have so many bilingual families. We thought that that would be a real asset. The chief is permitting Tamara and I to participate in the interviews and selection process. We agreed that it's really important to find the right person, the right fit, the right reason for becoming an SRO, that all matters. And the chief really liked the concept that Kelly would be the home base for one officer, and that they would also have connections with 3 or 4 of the elementary schools and or the preschool. We agreed. That is a concept that I'm familiar with in a former district. So we decided that SRO number 1 would be home based at Kelly, but would be that first point of contact for Bishop, Uncas, Huntington, and Vets, and that the SRO Global would be home based at Global, and the first point of contact for Stanton, Moriarty, Mahan, and Waquanic. So it would be important for the SRO to go to those schools and do some site evaluations, just to be really familiar with all aspects of the physical facility and the outside area, to meet the kids and meet the staff and have a relationship with the principal, so that in the event when the principal would be calling law enforcement anyway, that this SRO would respond, so that they already knew the principal, had a good relationship with them, and could assist. So we're looking for the SROs to secure our crisis plans and develop along with us the best procedures, amplify or extend our procedures to resolve conflicts and de-escalate aggression. They are the main, if you will, security officer of the school, being obviously a certified police officer. And then it goes on, these are a lot of the information from the national website that we agreed with, that they should want to have a desire to work in schools and work with young students, that they would help youth to avoid involvement with the juvenile justice system, and that they wear an official Norwich Police uniform, carry a firearm, and drive in a Norwich Police vehicle. So we both have had experiences with seeing someone in a polo shirt and you're not sure if they're a member of law enforcement. We all thought it was very important for it to be clear to students and staff that this was a member of the Norwich Police. While they're working for the Norwich Public Schools, they would be under the general supervision of me, Tamara, and Sarah Dusso, our equity director. They would maintain a close partnership with school personnel, be a role model for students, deter misconduct through prevention and intervention, serve as a liaison between the 2 departments, a resource, provide alcohol and drug prevention support for students, assist in making appropriate referrals to service agencies when necessary, be visible, proactive, and available, conduct routine preventative patrol indoor and outdoor of the premises and grounds, support the Raptor school visitor management system to ensure that visitors to the school are safe and not a threat to the students or the school. And then I could go on and on with some of the things we came up with, but certainly leading fire drills and lockdown drills, supporting all 911 calls, leading and participating in restorative conferences, conduct physical searches of student property only if they are suspected of breaking the law. So this is an important piece, that there are administrative roles and then there are roles for law enforcement. And so we're asking, and the chief agrees, that we continue in the same way. Our administrators are in charge of any search and seizure that are for student behavior misconduct, and they would only involve law enforcement in the same way they would call 911 or call for assistance. We have heard from our students and from families at the PTO coffee hours that bus stops are a real worry for a lot of our kids. And students certainly at expulsion hearings in the last year or 2 have said that they brought something in to protect themselves because they're nervous in their neighborhood and they're nervous on their bus stop. And so we agreed that providing security in the mornings or even in the afternoons, but particularly the mornings at random bus stops will be important so that students feel safe being there. And that also greeting students in the morning on, if you will, bus duty and afternoon bus duty is important to foster those relationships of welcome to school, good morning, et cetera. We all agree that it's important for them to conduct home visits, and those home visits would be scheduled by the equity director in concert with the principal, so that they can go to the homes, check on the well-being of students, see if they can be helpful in encouraging the student to come to school, and that they would be, just like they do on their job now, provide sort of a daily log of the work that they're doing. Providing assemblies and presentations to students and staff on a number of safety items, protect the school against theft and property damage, and assist in medical emergencies. Provide parent trainings in the evenings. Please know, though, that I would be authorizing, or Tamara in my absence, for evening or after school time, because the 8-hour job we would be paying for, we would be responsible for overtime, but there certainly may be times, maybe at a basketball game where we had a very, very high population of visitors, might be a time where the SRO, we wanted them to come. Maybe in providing a parent training, that's certainly a worthwhile endeavor, but it would be an overtime adjustment. And I think I mentioned most of those. We also thought it would be important at both schools to establish a youth advisory board, so that students could have a say in the safety and crisis procedures, and talk with the SRO about how they're feeling and how they would like this to go, and other general safety information, particularly at the elementary schools, around bike helmets and scooters and general physical well-being. I suggested that we write a memorandum of agreement between the two agencies, so things are pretty clear, and the chief said that they had a memorandum of agreement previously, so we asked Pete Marr to draft one. It is just a draft, but it is in board docs for anyone who would like to look at it. It's important to note that SRO programs in Connecticut are required to abide by Connecticut General Statute 10233M, which requires a graduated response model for student discipline and training of social, emotional, and restorative practices. So they're very, very specifically defined, and you'll see that in the MOA. I don't know if that piece was in place in the past, but it's very clear that there's classroom intervention and classroom management techniques provided by the teacher, such as redirection, reteaching, school climate initiatives, teacher-parent contact. SROs should not be involved at that level. Then there's school administration intervention of school-level management, lunch detention, loss of privileges, reparation, restorative practices, ISS and OSS. They're saying SRO should not be involved at that level. There is a role for the SROs in restorative practice, obviously, but not in lieu of administration. And then there is a sort of an assessment and community service provision, which is referral to community agencies and the Juvenile Review Board, community service programs, referral to court, and the SRO can be involved in those functions. And then the law enforcement intervention, which they are involved in anyway, and that's only when classroom, school community, and school options have been found ineffective, or in the event of an emergency, should the school contact or involve the SRO. And that's what we've come up with.
That's quite a list, duty-wise.
Want to apply? No.
No, my days are
You
over.
sure?
Those days are over, long, long ago. All right, questions from the board?
I had a quick question. You mentioned that there's a draft of the MOA. I don't know if it's me not being able to access it, but I can't see it.
In board docs. So let me just get there. So in board docs, and I'm so sorry. I apologize. In board docs, if you scroll down on the left-hand side, there are 3 items under the SRO report. One is my computer's not behaving now. One is actually a letter from the Norwich NAACP to me that we put in there for your information. The other is the memorandum of agreement draft. And, hold on, did you find it?
I got it.
Okay.
One of the questions that I
Sure.
did have is more about process. So what it might look like in an instance where there's an issue that arises and that the SRO has to step in as like I guess, has to wear the certified police officer's hat instead of the security type of resources hat, where in those instances, how will parent be involved? Because if a child is speaking to an officer as a result of an issue, how would, I guess the engagement with parents would be like? Because that's happening within the school system rather than outside of it. I don't know if that's making sense, but I just want to make sure.
It totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So they're always a law enforcement officer. That's always their hat. There is no other hat. That hat can also serve to inform students, and can also serve to inform parents in a more informal and formal way as a partner of the school. But so for right now, we don't typically have police officers coming as members of our team to do parent trainings. And so, but they always have, they're always a law enforcement officer. So right now, if a law enforcement officer were to question a child, they would need the parent to be present. As an SRO, if they were to question a child, they need the parent to be present. Right now, they don't participate in our search and seizures for non-criminal matters, for administrative discipline matters. As an SRO, they wouldn't either. So it's, the tricky part becomes that after working in the school for a number of years, you start to develop a collegial bond, and you consider yourself, of course, as like one member of the administrative team. And so it has to be really, really clear from my experience that you're always in law enforcement in our team, and we're conducting the administrative part of the work. Because there is a risk of that bubbling over into the work. And there's lots of research that shows that if you're not careful with that, then you're involving law enforcement in the process too early. So that's up to our administrators to ensure that they're not calling on law enforcement any earlier than they would if they were calling to the station.
And I know we're just discussing, and I don't know what the administration have been talking about, how we're going to track that's not happening.
So Tamara and Sarah and I are going to track that. And that's why we're working on a daily log and a schedule. And so we get all of the discipline reports, and we know when police are involved. And we know right now when police are doing a criminal search and seizure, and whether our administrators are doing a search and seizure. From the reports that I've heard from our administrators who were administrators during the time of the SROs here, and from our police officer friends who were SROs at the time, that didn't seem to be a problem here. I have seen that in other places sort of meld together, but it's a very valid question.
I don't know if anyone else does it.
Are there any other questions?
I just had a quick question. So, I had a quick question on the process on their end for recruitment, like how extensive it would be in the time frame.
So the chief believes that there are many officers who have already taken the SRO national training. Years ago, you would have to go to a regional site to take the training in person, but if COVID gave us anything positive, one of the positive things is online training. And so now that online training has been available for at least, I think, the last 2 years, and officers have taken advantage of that. The police chief feels as if there will be many folks coming forward to select from. And that he could, he's waiting on your, feedback tonight, and he can advertise it as soon as we need him to. And then, obviously, interviews would follow that, and then an onboarding process, and then they could begin.
If I could make one comment that hasn't even come up, is remembering the security that the police will provide. A lot of people are forgetting about all the incidents we've had in the past several years at schools. People always say, oh, it's not going to happen here. And what about those parents who thought that of the schools where their children were killed? So we have to remember we're dealing with a very different community, and that having a police presence will be a deterrent to people who might have some crazy idea, or a student who might have a crazy idea to commit harm. So we have to keep that in mind also, not just how they're going to treat the kids differently. These gentlemen and women who go through the program receive an excellent training. And I know one of the officers that was an SRO previously, he was just a big teddy bear to all the kids, and he was a great presence and a wonderful role model. And we have to remember that having a policeman also gives the people a sense of security, that they're being protected. It's not a negative all the time. It's many positive factors to take into consideration. And that's it. Thank you.
And I will concur with you on that. I think what we're discussing right now is what would work best for our school community. Yeah, I think I'll just go closer to the mic. I said I agree with you, but what we're discussing tonight is like what would work best for our school community itself. Question that I did have, I know the last time we discussed this a little bit, I think you had mentioned that it's going to be a minimal cost to a budget. I don't know if we know what that number is going to look like.
We asked Josh Pothier for the estimate for this year and then the following subsequent years. Bob, do you happen to have that in front of you?
Yeah, it's not an exact number because there were some questions. It was approximately $250,000 for next year. There were questions regarding vacation time, sick time. Would there be a replacement? Would we pay for training? So those details still would need to be worked out. And prior to the board voting on your next year's budget, we would have a more refined number than that.
Make one final comment regarding school community. That's one of our community safe. I think that should be a priority. And that's it. Thank you.
Mark.
Yep. Also, the fact that these resource officers would be on site would reduce 911 response times if they're a few minutes as opposed to, possibly 10 or more minutes, so they can de-escalate a situation very quickly because they're on site, and they'd have the ability to call in more help if they needed it. Also, call ambulances, responses. They could assess the situation and determine what's needed at that time, so that I think it's a wonderful resource, and the fact that they're not going to be used in a manner other than like we have right now if we made a 911 call. So although they are sworn police officers, they're going to defer to the administration and the processes for disciplining students to the principals, the teachers, the administration, before they look at it from a law enforcement perspective, unless that situation warrants it.
Anything else? Any other comments? Concerns? Questions? Thank you, Dr. Stringfellow. All right, the next item under the new business, the first read of the school calendar.
So Ms. Gloucester has worked with our administrators and our teacher leaders and paraprofessional leaders to develop a school calendar that we believe will meet the needs of our students and staff. Is there anything you specifically want to walk them through? But it's a
Yes.
first reading for you.
Yes, this is a first read. One of the, I would say, the major differences in talking with our administrators, they really expressed wanting to engage our families. They also felt the need to want to connect with families and have families in the schools. And so they would really like to start this earlier than later. And what some districts are doing in Connecticut is having hopes and dreams conferences with parents to talk about like what do they envision for their students, and goal setting and creating action plans so that students can then realize and progress monitor that throughout the school year. So if you look in August, you'll see on the August 31st, it would start. So the first day, those first few days leading up to September 2nd would be half days. And that's where we would be inviting parents in the afternoons to meet staff, see the classrooms, and conference about hopes and dreams of the families and students. Otherwise, I believe there isn't much change, except this year we extended the February break a little bit. If you look at February 22nd, so like this year, February 23rd is a PD day for staff. And so likewise, we kept that in the calendar to have another PD day in the middle of the year instead of having all of our PD days at the beginning and at the end. So we removed the end of year PD day and put it in the middle where it can actually be useful to our staff and they can implement their new learning in the classroom. And then if you look in June, that brings us to our last day tentatively being June 14th. So if we have a snow day, that would get us to that, that Thursday the 15th, and we have 2 snow days before we go into the next week. So it just gives us a little bit of room until we would have to go into the following week or the 3rd week of June, keeping in mind that the 19th is now June 19th, an observance, so that would be no school. So which means if we go into that next week, then we would have school starting, on the 20th. So just give you an idea.
Markoulos, the only thing I see that is possibly missing, I don't know if you checked in with the registrar of voters for a possible primary day. I don't know if that would be in August or September. That I know we've had problems with that in other election years, being that this is a state office election year, more possibility for primaries.
Yeah, I would say we did check that. I checked that with Amber, and we didn't have that day in September, so we're just double checking again. But yeah, we did look for that first.
I believe it was before school started. I did check with
Mr. Chairman, Aaron Daniels. I did check with the registrar.
You have a direct line of communication or something?
And it's before school starts. It's at the beginning of the month, early August.
Got to have those hooks every once in a while, right? There you go.
Nice to have an inside source.
All right. Do we have any other new business? There you go, yes. Don't apologize.
I'm a little slow on the when to do everything. So maybe now I've had more time to think about it, I can rephrase my question with maybe not so much animosity if I came out off that way. I can't breathe in this thing anyway.
Hold on. Just to make all our paperwork look right there, Mr. Chairman, we need to amend the agenda to put her on it.
Yeah, yes.
So, what is this topic going to be?
I would like to just ask the superintendent a question about when we could expect some kind of notice to acknowledge what the governor released yesterday, because other
Okay.
schools have been doing it.
So, Mr. Chairman, Aaron Daniels, I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda to add as item number 3.4, a discussion on the mask mandate.
There's a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second? Second by Christine DeStagio. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? It's so voted.
All right.
So what I was trying to get across earlier is that there would be no action on my part in violation of whatever the governor and the Department of Health is doing. If you as a board wanted to take a different type of action, then that would be something that would lie at the purview of this body. Now, you mentioned the Hartford superintendent. That's in a different health district than we are. The information that we got from the Uncas Health District, I'm trying to pull it up, was letting us know that not recommend continuing to do what we're doing now until the General Assembly's vote on the governor's executive orders no earlier than the governor stated, effective February 28. So if something happens previous to that, then I will let the community know that this is what the governor's action has been, this is what the General Assembly's action has been, because right now the governor is saying, I would like my powers extended till the 28th. That hasn't happened yet. So right now his powers expire on the 15th.
Oh, you can go first.
And were his orders? I thought they.
They haven't, his order goes on February 15th. He wants to
Correct.
extend it to the 28th. However, legislative session doesn't go into session until tomorrow. I think given what we have as a hot topic, everybody has it as a hot topic, I think that agenda item is going to be pushed up more towards the top by the legislature to probably get a more affirmative response to the governor. Right now, it's still on the 15th. That's just what his order is. It doesn't pertain to it, and he puts the onus upon the towns and the schools and the superintendent, but more importantly, to the Board of Education.
So,
Carlene.
yeah, I appreciate you sending us some information yesterday. I'm still digging through it. So, with that said, I would actually like to propose that we postpone this conversation until next week when the governor's executive order is and/or gets extended if possible. So.
If I'm hearing you correctly, Carlene, what you want to do is, what you want, or proposing is, you want to postpone this discussion until the 15th, in which time we would call a special meeting of the Board of Education for the purposes of discussing the now new mask mandate or unmasked mandate issued by Governor Lamont. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Thank you, I appreciate you acknowledging that I did send over a lot of information, and it's a lot to read, but it's amazingly informational. Lots of different studies and stuff about natural immunity, and I mean, I don't know, I think every one of our kids has
Heather?
been out of school for COVID.
Heather, hold on for a second. Because we have a motion on the floor, we need a second, okay? And under comment, you may make that, but I would probably encourage you to save it for the special meeting. You're welcome. Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second the motion that we postpone this discussion until we hold a special meeting, or depending on what happens at the legislature or the governor, whether that mandate is extended or whether the legislature acts to extend. Right now, we don't have enough information. We don't know exactly when the mandate is expiring or may expire. We basically are just shooting in the dark. We have no information at this time to really extend or not extend or whatever our mask mandate, which was issued by Governor Lamont under his emergency powers.
Christine?
Christine D'Estacia. I was just wondering if we can include that we hold that special meeting within, say, I know it's difficult with everyone's schedules, but this is a very important issue for many of our residents. And have it within, say, 3 days after we hear of whether the governor's emergency powers have been extended. And that's it, I guess. Make sure that's included. Don't want to drag it out and end up having the meeting 2-3 weeks away.
Right. Well, for a special meeting, we need at least 2 days' notice, public notice.
Right. So that's what I said, if we say 3 days.
So it has to be posted at least 2 days prior to the meeting, 2 full days prior. So the special meeting would take place on the 3rd day after the posting.
Yeah, I realize it can't be sooner than that, plus everybody has to make arrangements.
Right.
So.
Okay, are there any other further comments?
Yes, I had another, maybe a follow-up question, if you will. It was my understanding that you were saying if his powers did not get extended as of tomorrow or whenever, that unless we decided something different, your intentions were to lift the mandates, right? Or
The governor made the mandates. Kristen
Right.
Stringfellow didn't make the mandates. So
Okay.
I'm not lifting or doing anything. What we would be doing as a body is you would either decide to follow what the governor is telling you to do or allowing you to do, or you could heed the advice of the local health director or the state health director if they were giving you different information. I think it's important to note, we haven't received any information from the local or state health director yet, so I concur with what Mark said. You would need some guidance that would lead you to under what conditions would you, as a body, be in favor of continuing the mask mandates. But right now, if you do nothing, and the governor's powers expire on the 15th, then on the 16th, this becomes optional.
Okay, and I guess
That's what I was trying to say an hour ago, but you were very enthusiastic.
Thanks
That's
for
okay.
clearing that up. And
No problem.
I guess my concern was just notifying all the parents and making sure that everybody's aware when we know that that's going to happen, so that everybody knows ahead of time.
So the tricky part about that is, if I knew when the General Assembly was going to do just about anything, I think I would be more certain to win the lottery than anyone here. And so I think that There are a lot of people anxiously awaiting some sort of a decision one way or another, and I get that. What I don't want to do is misinform our community members one way or another. Right now, it's very clear. It seems to be clear, might not be clear. I thought it was clear that the governor's mask mandate and all of the powers that are accompanying the executive order disappear on the 15th unless the General Assembly extends them. He's asking for them to be extended till the 28th. And so as it gets closer and there is more information, we're hearing from the State Department of Health and the State Department of Education that that's coming soon. When there is some clear information, then I certainly will communicate that to our families. But I don't know that they're waiting like for word tomorrow, because it's not going to change tomorrow. But I hear you loud and clear that yes.
I know that. I just wanted to make sure that we talked about it tonight, because there are a lot of parents
Certainly.
who don't want to wait another 30 days to have it at least acknowledged.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Sure.
Al?
Call the question.
Question's been called. That's correct.
Are we going to have a special meeting?
The question has been
Shortly
called.
after we find out?
Yes, we are.
Well, that's
Well,
we got to have
we
a
haven't
vote.
voted on it.
That's the
Well,
vote.
we will. I'm sorry. There's a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
All right.
Okay. And if I may comment also, I know that last week, I believe, the State Department of Education took public comment from concerned parents and teachers and other staff. And again, they have not acted or issued any directives one way or the other how they feel about it. So again, we're getting no direction from Hartford.
This is certainly a hot topic. Everybody knows that. And until we have a more definitive information, including from not only from the CDC, but from the the state government, our own Uncas Health District, we will proceed as usual until at such time as a special meeting is held. We'll discuss it amongst us and make the right decision for not only for our students, but for our faculty and for our staff, and always having their interests first and foremost. All right. Moving on to, is there any unfinished business? Hearing none, committee reports. I'm sorry, Greg, Christine.
Know where I should introduce this, Chairman, I'm sorry.
Can you get move your hand?
Here we go. No, now I got it. It's regarding a change on the incident reports that are completed by staff when something occurs within the school buildings. A discussion regarding the definition of assault. That I didn't know where to bring that up, actually. I have discussed it with Dr. Stringfellow somewhat, but I didn't know where to bring that up.
So that was discussed at another previous meeting here?
No. Oh, go ahead. If you recall, there was, long before my time, an agreement with the Norwich Teachers League and the Board of Education that if there were an unusual incident, that the board be notified, I be notified, and the president of the Teachers League be notified. You have received a couple of reports of unusual incident this year. There is a question that says to the teacher, was this an assault? So Ms. DeStasio brought up the question, should we put in a definition of assault? My response was, this was an agreement that happened long before I was involved. I don't think it would be appropriate for me to unilaterally come up with an assault definition, that if any one of us felt as if we had been assaulted, there is a legal definition available widely online, but we could also call the Norwich Police Department and said, let me tell you about my story, or let me file a report was I assaulted, in terms of the legal definition? But I work for the board, so I defer to you.
I just want to what I'm asking is that we just have a clear definition. I don't know if we can consult with our attorney, Mr. Marr, et cetera, regarding what we would consider an assault. It just seems to be too much of a gray area when I've read these incident reports regarding what has occurred, because everybody has a different opinion, and I think we need to have a framework as to what is classified as an assault upon our staff or whoever, or upon another student, when it's between students, just for the legality. And as she said, this was something that came up way before her tenure, and it's just because I don't understand it when I've read some descriptions of incidents and then I see that assault's not checked off. I'm like.
Another piece that you may want to consider is, even if something was an assault, then the individual gets to decide whether they want to press charges, and then the institution gets to decide whether they want to press charges. So for example, there have been times in my career where an individual has been assaulted and they have said, I'm not pressing charges, just like it would be in everyday life.
Right.
And then we get to determine, as the school department, if we're pressing charges against an adult, against anyone. And so I think, I think some of the confusion comes because staff members want you to know that it's happening. They want me to know that it's happening. They want their union president to know that it's happening. More often than not, we either deploy Jamie Bender right to the school, Beth Hanlon right to the school, or me or Tamara right to the school to support and just make sure that we're there helping. But at the end of the day, it's the individual that gets to decide what they think happened to them. And so that's,
I understand you're right, there's a lot of gray area when it comes to incident reports for the Board of Education, for the schools and for the teachers. But merely from a law enforcement type of a aspect, you have certain elements for certain crimes. If that element fits that crime, whether it be assault or reckless endangerment, then the victim would have to notify the police and be willing to file a police report. Like they say in court, no victim, no crime. So that's the other side of that's the other part of the seesaw. So I clearly understand where that you are coming from, but the definition, like Dr. Stringsbella said, of assault is clearly defined in the dictionary, and the elements to substantiate a crime of assault is dictated in the Connecticut General Statutes, starting with 53A 60. So I hope that answers your question for you.
Well, from a legal standpoint, there's also assault is treated differently in a civil context than the civil tort as opposed to criminal law. Criminal law, assault generally means a touching or a striking, where in civil law, assault is a threat of a strike and battery is the actual touching. So the things that are listed in the criminal law are actually batteries. So they're misusing the word assault from a legal civil context. So the words mean two different things depending on who you're talking to. So even the law isn't straight on exactly what an assault is. And to some people, a swing at somebody's face may or may not be an assault, depending on the perspective of the person. So that's why that is in the unusual incident reports. Do you consider this to be an assault? They might be pushed to the ground or something, but given the context of everything, it could be an accident, it could be, just a kid was moving too fast and the momentum carried them, It wasn't purposeful. So
So you
it's really in the eye of the beholder sort of thing.
you might have an eye of the beholder thing, or what's written on the incident report by the teacher or the person reporting it, which is based on how they felt their opinion. But for our own data collecting purposes,
Right.
it may be good to come up with a definition of what an assault is, so that we're tracking how it's happening and having a standard definition that we're using. I think that's what you're getting at.
And also, sometimes those forms are completed when the victim is still feeling the adrenaline and the emotion of what has just occurred, and might not be as clear in their thinking. And I know they want to look out for the student, and they don't want any ill will towards it. That's not why they're in this business. But I do want, and that was one of the things I was thinking of, though, is the tracking ability, as Mr. Perry just mentioned. Thank you.
There's another piece, just to make it more confusing for you, is that there's also like a workman's comp claim. There's also like a injury report. There's also a police report. And so the staff member has a lot of choices in front of them, depending upon what happened, how they perceived it, and what type of support they're looking for. So in some cases, I mean, they're either writing, yes, I thought it was an assault, or not. And if they're confused, I have a whole bunch of really smart principals who've done this before. So they say to them, if you're concerned, call the police, and many have. Others just want to know that they're dealing with a really tricky situation, and they want to make sure that Jamie or me or you know that how really hard it's been. So it really depends. I really am not trying to sway you one way or another. Again, this is a labor agreement. You making a unilateral change may not be welcomed. So that I do want to put that out there. Usually they agree on something, and it would come from labor if it wasn't working for them. I mean, we all might get an email in 5 minutes saying, yes, that's exactly what I was looking for. I don't know that yet. But, that's all I'll offer. But we're happy to comply and sit down with NTL if that's something you're all interested in having us do.
I think it's definitely something that should be broached with their union, and just see how they feel about it. I just want to make sure their backs are covered also when in the event of an altercation. You know, I know that we're there for them too, that we want to protect them, our staff.
Carleen?
This is just procedural. When we were talking about the mask mandate, we had to amend our agenda in order to have that conversation. I think we've been having this conversation for a while now. I'm wondering if we need to re-amend our agenda and add this, because I feel like there's a motion that you would like to make as part of this conversation right now. And this was not an advertised item.
But as, I think as
Al, go
the
ahead.
superintendent, sorry, I think as superintendent said, we're not to that step yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at this point, it's just a discussion item in unfinished business.
Yep.
Okay.
And so, just like public comment, she's making a comment, we'll take notes, we'll get you an answer.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Before we move on from unfinished business, I believe it was last month, I think Christine mentioned something about a academic committee, I believe it was. Curriculum committee. I was wondering if there was any follow-up on that.
We have a curriculum
we already
committee,
have
and
one.
it's been in place
Oh,
for
okay.
a number of years.
Yep. I thought I answered that. We answered that last time.
No, I'm sorry. What he's referring to is a curriculum committee where Board of Ed members are part of it.
No, we don't have that. And that's not necessary. We don't dictate
Other
the,
boards do have it, though.
we don't dictate the curriculum. It's going to be taught in our schools.
But part of it is that our residents expect us to be overseeing it, and if there's things being taught that we're not aware of or feel that shouldn't be taught, I mean, we're representing them. Sorry, Bob, but I know other towns have them.
Go ahead.
You can tell me to butt out, but I might be able to parlay this for you. So all of our curriculum is available online. Everything that we teach is also taught by is prescribed by the State Department of Education. If a member of the community has a question or a worry or a wonder about, or if any of you, then you would note that for the curriculum committee. Let's say a book. If this particular book is something that was of a worry for you as a dad, then you would write down what your worry is. Maybe it's at the wrong grade level. Maybe you feel the content is too risky. Maybe you feel as if it should be not in any library, but it could be direct instruction. Then that would come before the curriculum committee. It's made up of mostly teachers and administrators. They would all read the book, and then they would all make a determination and recommendation to Tamara and I. I don't know what you mean by, I don't know, I can't weigh in on the Board of Ed, what you're talking about, but just so that you know, that already does exist for your information, and I'll remain quiet now.
So where would I reference that, Dr. Stringfellow?
Say it again, please.
Where would I reference the materials?
So the curriculum is on our website.
Okay.
And if you have trouble finding it, then Amber can help you or send you anything, or any community member, anything that they wanted. If you wanted to just know about reading curriculum, then you can go as in-depth as you'd like to. What it may not give you is a list of every title that's explored in the reading curriculum, because there are hundreds of thousands. And so you can drill down. Let's say you had a request to say, what are the major books that are reviewed in mathematics at grade 7? That's also something we have readily available for you, if that's what you're looking for.
One thing I had asked about, some time ago was that I see the curriculum that Ms. Dusso was developing, and I haven't heard anything from her. That was a while ago. And
Ms.
someone
Dusso,
said
to my knowledge, is not developing any curriculum.
she isn't for the equity. There's no no instruction being
Our
developed.
curriculum comes from the Department of Education.
Okay.
So she doesn't develop curriculum.
So I don't grasp. So
there's curriculum, and then there's instructional materials.
Right.
So I'll take mathematics. The State Department of Education determined that every public school department in Connecticut will teach the Common Core State Mathematics Standards. Okay, we don't have choice. I don't have a choice. I can't say, nope, the heck with that. I'd rather have something else. I honestly, I'm pretty sure you don't have a choice. Like, as a public school, I think that's what we're prescribed to do. What we do have a choice is in the instructional materials that we use to give that instruction. So if you recall last year, we made a decision as a curriculum committee and as a school department to go with, I was going to say investigations. Now I'm back in the 1990s. It's Eureka Math.
Oh, yeah.
And so there are really only a few mathematics instructional materials that align very closely to the Common Core State Standards. One would have been Engage New York. Another one would have been Illustrative Math, and then Eureka Math, and Zern, which is a largely online program. And so at that time, what happens is teachers try on, pilot. Some of our teachers piloted Eureka, some of our teachers piloted Zern. And remember that we're an alliance district.
Right.
And so every district in Connecticut is managed in terms of curriculum and instructional materials. We're very managed because the Department of Ed meets with us several times a year.
Yeah, you
They would
explained all
not
that to me.
permit us to choose a math curriculum that was not aligned well. And these are vetted and they're written about. So we're all clear in the state which ones align with the Common Core state standards and which don't. So could you give me maybe an example of what you think
No,
the Sarah do so
the
might be right,
instructional-
and maybe I'll get closer to it in my
The
mind.
instructional materials then that are being utilized, having access to them, knowing the titles that are being utilized, et cetera.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that that's either online, or we can email that to you if it's not online.
Yeah,
We
if you
certainly
could.
Put it online for our families and so they can all see it.
Yes, I would like to possibly
Tamara
have
wants to
that
jump in.
material
So
emailed
Amber
to me.
just emailed you the link that's on our website, that if you go there at the bottom of the screen, you have direct access to our curriculum, and you can see the standards that are taught and the resources, instructional resources that accompany it.
And the material resources.
Yes.
Okay. All righty.
The instructional resources as well.
I'll peruse
And that
that.
is for every subject?
Social emotional learning as well, because I haven't found anything about social emotional learning on the
We'll
curriculum
send that to
website.
you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and to me
And we
also.
used, as we had stated in previous reports, that we use Choose Love, which is a free resource. I mean, you can Google that right now. And
I'm
that's-
sorry, I couldn't understand that.
Choose Love?
Choose Love,
Yep.
right.
So that's from Scarlett Lewis, whose child was a victim of the Sandy Hook tragedy. And so Scarlett put together a free program, but it is aligned to the CASEL standards, which are the National Social Emotional Learning Standards. So I can email you right now. It should be on our website, but we'll check into that to make sure it's there for everybody. But I can, if that would be helpful, I can email that to you.
Sure. Thank you very much.
So basically, in picking the instructional materials, that's really the only wiggle room you have as far as curriculum. So you can't deviate if they say you have to, the state says you have to provide so many hours in U.S. history, and you decide, oh no, we're going to teach Australian history and not U.S. history.
There, except for electives at the middle school level, you are correct.
All right.
And so in terms of electives, if there was an interest, I'll say global studies, that's not statewide. And so global studies curriculum or the, some of the STEAM curriculum, like coding, a coding curriculum, there are certainly, I'm uncertain, because I'm not the curriculum director, if there's a requirement for those, but for the core subjects, absolutely.
And then things like foreign language or
World
art.
language. There are world language standards, then we follow those standards-based curriculum since 1998. But they're less prescribed than the core areas of science, math, reading, and social studies. Those are prescribed. So you've heard Tamara in the last year talk about changes to middle school social studies curriculum that has come from the state recently, whereas English and math, that has been, I think, how long has Connecticut been in Common Core?
Connecticut adopted Common Core in 2014.
And of course, the legislature puts in their own foot too with, like they prescribed, I believe there's a certain program of indigenous studies to come through the
That's
school
new,
system.
yes, for middle school and high schools. Choose Love and Castle, sorry.
I think I just wanted to let you know, I think since you brought up Sarah and the equity work that's been happening, I just wanted to let you all know that the first meeting for this year has been scheduled for the 23rd from 4 to 5:30. So there should be a report at our March meeting in terms of like what happened at that meeting.
Anything else on unfinished business? Moving on to committee reports, the Budget Expenditure Committee. All these reports you need, if you like, you can access on your board docs. Christine.
Sorry, Bob. I just want to say one thing quick about the school building committee, because I know people are anxious about what's going on, and I didn't submit anything. And I know Mark was there, and I think you joined us for a little while, Bob. I can't even remember. The school building committee. Just wanted to
Yes.
tell you in a few words what's going on. They're issuing an online survey for teachers and supervisors. And they are also sending one out to 5th grade and up, but now there's a possibility that they're going to develop some kind of a scale for even the younger kids to be able to do, to get their feel of what they want in their schools. So it might go as low as 3rd and 4th grade. And we review the timeline for submitting the report to the city council, because that time is coming fast, so that we'll be able to have it go to referendum in the fall. So that's where we're at right now, but, and they'll be probably holding another public meeting. Hopefully we'll get more response than we did last time, where people can come and see what's going on. But it's exciting, and we're moving forward. It's slow, but we're moving forward. That's it. Thank you.
Carlene?
Sorry, you probably already said that, but do you know where the public hearings are being advertised?
When they had it here, they actually had it in the community room last time, and it'll be I'm sure it'll probably be there or in here again.
It's advertised on the City of Norwich website on the
yeah.
calendar, so that they list it under boards and commissions, and the agenda is set under that. So agenda and minutes are listed.
I think we even sent it out, I think possibly through School Messenger last time, if I'm correct, because we wanted to try to get it out there and have, people getting excited about it, and, let people know what was going on.
We met with Bob and I met with the demographer today. He was in town, and they asked us to meet with him for a couple of hours to talk about enrollment studies and what the trends in the data have been. So I know that he was earmarking, was it March 1st, to get a draft of enrollment trend data package to us, just so we could look at it to see if there are any errors in terms of like attendance zones or things that may have happened or not happened over the last 10 years. And then they were hoping that they would get something solid, like a final report to your board by, I think it was April 1st.
They also are inviting someone from the rec department and human services, the new director, so that they can have a place at the table on our committee also, so we can have all voices represented. So they'll give us some valuable input, I'm sure, so we meet all the needs of the community, or as many as we can.
I think the biggest thing I got out of that meeting, that building meeting was, huh? No, no, but what I did get out is that it's being, we want to get this buttoned up and finalized, so it can be presented to the city council for their purview, and get it on, and hopefully get it on to the November election ballot. All right. As far as the NFA liaison, I had the privilege of attending the first meeting as the board chair on January 25th. It was a Tuesday night. I got to tell you, the campus has changed drastically, and it's amazing what they have there now. When we were at the Latham building, which was never there when I was there, it was a parking lot. And it was just phenomenal what they're giving our kids nowadays at Norwich Free Academy. But many of the Board of Trustees, including Dr. Brian Kelly and Duval Joyner, were attending virtually, but basically because of COVID. And I might consider doing that myself going forward. Their budget was presented, and they too are seeing a drastic decline in their enrollment, especially, and I'm not surprised at all, but especially from their international group, because a lot of their international students come from China. So they're just not allowing that. So that's a decrease, a severe decrease in the monetary aspect. So thank goodness the NFA has a lucrative foundation, and a wonderful foundation committee chaired by Todd Postler, where they can, they have something to go back and look for. Also, their experience, like we are, is staffing shortages. Nothing to the point as drastic as we couldn't open school because we didn't have enough staff to safely open our schools, but they too are in the same boat as we are. And they're looking at projected enrollments for next year, and given what they have, for the information they have available to them right now, the enrollment's going to be down just from the local area. So it was a very cordial meeting. I have yet to meet their Board of Trustees Chairman, Duval Joyner, but we have exchanged phone numbers, and I look forward to meeting him. It seems he's a very cordial individual. The whole Board of Trustees that I met were very nice. So that's my report. We have any board reports to make?
I just want to make a brief on negotiations. We had a preliminary meeting with the paraeducators, and we've scheduled a schedule of meetings. We still have to exchange proposed contracts to consider, and we're also working to button up the food service workers contracts, so hopefully we'll get that done shortly.
Thank you. Greg?
Yeah, so I'll also try to be brief. We have a vaccine clinic happening at Integrated Day Charter School this Friday, February 11th. It's open to the public. So that's advertised, and we'll also talk about it here. I wanted to say thank you to Dr. Stringfellow and Norwich Public Schools for helping to check that we got some of the COVID materials, masks, and testing kits recently that we needed. The COVID and absentee rates at IDCS have been dropping, so we have just decided recently to restart some of the practices that were paused for the month of January. In-person meetings, student council, learning buddies, allowing parent volunteers in. And we are just going to begin talking about what we may do going forward with masks, but those conversations have not started yet. There was a small calendar change. March 11th was originally going to be a full day of professional development, but we're changing that to a half day and then a half day of PD to offset one of the recent cancellations that we've had. There was a discussion about doing that for February break, but that is going to stay as it is. And we had a conversation about at the most recent board meeting about the January 4th cancellation due to staffing shortages with Norwich Public School. Our staffing issues there and shortages there are minor compared to what Norwich Public Schools is going through. Trouble getting substitutes and stuff, but we haven't been anywhere close to not having enough teachers. So the decision made was that if that was to happen again, IDCS would still be in. We'd still have school without the buses, kind of like what Norwich Free Academy had done. And right now for professional development, all the staff are focusing and working on strengthening the partnership between parents and teachers.
Christine?
Just one question, Greg. So if the student, so it sounds like they're making it optional for the kids to come in when they have when we have the snow day. So it's going to be an excused absence, right?
Absence,
Okay, just
correct.
wanted to clarify that.
If they can get in,
Exactly.
they can get in. If
Yep.
they can't, it's an excused absence.
Exactly. Thank you.
Kevin, Policy Committee?
Kevin Seitani. The Policy Committee went smoothly on January 19th. That was our first meeting. I want to thank Dr. Stringfellow for giving us, or everyone in the committee, a overall report on the four topics: school uniforms, protection and support for transgender and gender minority students, equity, race policy, and the educator diversity recruitment and retention. Surveys for the student uniforms. I'm not sure if they're sent out already or will be sent out, but
We determined at the last meeting they'd be sent out the week of February 14th because the teacher representatives on the group thought it would just be a good idea to give about 15 minutes on the professional development day, which is the 23rd, and then close it after that. And also that we would give students in grades 5 through 8 some time during the school day, like in homeroom or the start of their day, to be able to take the survey if that's something that they wanted to do.
Okay, thank you very much. Yep, and until we have our next meeting, we'll go into further conversation with those 4 topics.
Thank you, Kevin. Anyone else under committee reports? Anything under board reports? And we have our year-to-date budget report, the enrollment report, and personnel all on your board docs. Is there any questions or concerns about those 3 reports? Hearing none. Item number 8, executive session. I need a motion.
A motion to enter executive session pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 1-200. Members of the Board of Education move to go into executive session for discussion of attorney-client privilege communication regarding the forensic audit related to retiree insurance benefits and attorney-client privilege communication regarding business office systems, practices, and transactions. Dr. Kristen E. Stringfellow, Tamara Gloucester, Robert Serpensky, Jamie Bender, Amber Rutigliano, Attorney Peter Mayer, and Stephen Pedno may be asked to participate for some or all of the executive session at the request of the Board of Education.
Aaron Daniels, second that motion.
We have a motion on the floor to go into executive session, and we have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? So voted.
The community room where the attorney and the auditor are waiting.